morning and Happy New Year. I remember 175 years ago, in other words, a long time ago, wondering about the life of those who walk the spiritual path. What kind of lifestyle, did they have? What kind of environment did they live in? What kind of spiritual disciplines did they practice? I was so excited and so curious and had so many questions. And then one day I learned quite a bit when White Mountain Group published a book called At the Threshold of the New World, which was basically written by Helena Rourke about her life experiences. I was so thrilled because she's a great woman and lived a normal life. Not normal to us, but spiritually. But she was a wife, a mother, had a full-time job, lived in an environment that was rugged and difficult because of her travels, climbing the Himalayan mountains, the Kanchenjunga Mountains, which is part of the Himalayan range, and in weather conditions that we can only imagine, at an altitude that would require oxygen for us to breathe. So that part of her life was extraordinary. But she was married, and she had 2 sons, and she had to clean house, and she had to cook their dinner and clean up after them and deal with their teenage years. And that's what really anchored me in such a way that I knew the studies and the path of Agni Yoga was the path for me, because it wasn't so beyond my reach, but part of a life that I felt like in part I could live. So today's talk is giving us a little glimpse of what it is to recognize and to live as a person on the spiritual path, as a person perhaps that is on the path of Agni Yoga. So the title is called Agni, of this morning's talk is called Agni Yoga Series, Labor and the Spirit. So let me start with a quote from Fiery World, Volume 3, verse 37. The achievement of the Spirit consists in that amidst earthly difficulties. So that's, if you're taking notes, that's the first notation you might want to put down in your paper. The achievement takes place in earthly difficulties, not bliss. Earthly difficulties and struggles. Achievement consists in that amidst earthly difficulties and struggles that the Spirit develops the higher striving. So in other words, this verse is telling us that if you want to develop a higher consciousness, if you want to be able to breathe without an oxygen tank, when you're at the pinnacle of the Himalayan mountains, the way it's going to be done is through earthly difficulties, challenges. So the verse goes on to say, therefore, the co-workers can prove the strength of their spirit and striving among daily labors and difficulties. How could one attain the highest state, attain refinement of consciousness without spiritual labor. So, you will not find a single couch potato that is a student of Agni Yoga. Isn't that funny? It is funny, you know. You have to define what couch potato means other than the obvious, particularly when you're 90. So what is labor and what is spirit? For the typical person, labor is generally understood as the spending of physical and mental effort in the performance of work. But labor has a different definition in the nomenclature of Agni Yoga. So labor, when we read the term labor, we need to shift our understanding from the mundane to the spiritual. Helena Rourke told her students that labor is the cornerstone of our existence. The Master M said, labor is the crown of light. It is necessary that school pupils remember the significance of labor as a factor of world creation. As a result of labor, there will be steadfastness of consciousness. If you take a moment to really think about this, to think about school pupils, see, I certainly was not taught that when I was at the university. I was taught your profession will be equal to your income, or your income will be equal to your profession. So the goal was to get a degree to make money. It wasn't to expand our consciousness, to move out of our box of earthly matter and earthly understanding of the purpose of life. And thus, after we graduate from school, that's when life is just beginning for us spiritually. That's when we want to find a school that will teach us about spirit, teach us about invincibility, teach us about what true labor is and what the underlying purpose of labor is. Master M, repeating this, is saying, as a result of labor, there will be a steadfastness of consciousness. So there's a key thought, a seed thought to take home today to try to figure out what it means to have a steadfastness of consciousness. A great sage said, disciples are in continuous labor and they do not retire in old age. Most people will not extend themselves in any kind of labor unless they are paid or they receive some kind of material compensation, usually financial compensation in the form of salary or stock options or a promise of positions of power. In other cases, they are promised cars and houses and real estate and a healthy checking account and savings account and so on and so forth. In other words, most people labor for material compensation, and that's what we're taught. You know, this truly is the way we are directed from the time we're probably the age of, a teenager, maybe 15 or 16 or 17, that the goal in life is to get a good job to make a lot of money. A disciple, however, labors not for themselves, not for money, not for power, not for position, not for glory. A disciple labors for the spiritual hierarchy. Disciples recognize their talents are gifts. Gifts which must be used in the service to the plan of hierarchy, the plan for humanity and for its future. Their talents are used to give humanity hope and inspiration and a renewed faith in life, to create a bridge between this world and the higher worlds. They use their talent to increase health, to exemplify the creative power of love, and more. If a disciple gives freely of their talents in their labor, then their compensations are going to be far-reaching, beyond what we can even imagine. Their talents will never be exhausted, but will, in fact, multiply. The more of themselves they give to others, the greater will their treasures be. Treasures stored in their chalice, which stays with them life after life. See, isn't this different? It gives us a different perspective of the purpose of life and why one wants to be traveling on a spiritual path rather than the path of money and personal compensation. So what is spirit? This is a very simple definition from the teaching that spirit is fire, creative fire, and that your spirit is anchored in the heart. There is a term called the invincibility of spirit. I just love this term. I just love it. It's written about through Nicholas Rourke, one of the founders of Agni Yoga and the Agni Yoga Society. And, he was a great master artist and also an incredible writer. And he termed this phrase the invincibility of spirit. Who talks like this? Who says, do you have invincibility of spirit? Or even think when you look at a coworker, do you ask yourself, does this person have an invincibility of spirit? It's so poetic and so deep. The one who has an invincible spirit is one who, in spite of conditions, carries the banners of beauty and goodness and joy and freedom to the summit of the mountain. Nicholas Rourke believed a firm foundation is needed for the invincibility of spirit. So when you read this book that we published called At the Threshold of the New World, you learn about the invincibility of spirit of Nicholas and Helena Rourke, and of George Rourke, and of Svetoslav Rourke, and their disciples. You learn just this one little book. It's a small book. It'll only take maybe 12 hours to read. Or if you're a fast reader, maybe 7. So what does invincibility mean? It is a quality of being. It is a quality where your power will never be defeated. Invincibility of spirit is a quality where your power will never be defeated. Your spiritual power will never be defeated. The invincible spirit can never be defeated. The creative labor of a disciple with a firm foundation, this has to go with, a firm foundation will never be destroyed, no matter who tries to destroy it. It's like I've read books that were so damning about Nicholas Rourke and his life, and yet his work still brings in millions of dollars. His paintings. Just recently, a painting was sold of his for $1 million. And he died in 1947. Greatness will attract darkness, but darkness will never defeat the invincible spirit. Even if your creative endeavor is lost on earth, it will remain in the higher worlds and later manifest in form. Nicholas Roerg said, on all steps of existence, the very same realization of invincibility is needed. He compared the invincibility of one's spirit to a structure. He said, quote, as in daily life, so also in the biggest structures, one should be assured of the stability of the construction. So he is telling us, I believe, that we should consciously and repeatedly check our foundation to see if there are any cracks in our foundation. And the cracks in our foundation would be understood as Maya, glamour, and illusion, ego and vanity. Those are the cracks in our foundation. So he said one should be assured of the stability of the construction. When I was in Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia, which is still a historical and yet fairly undeveloped country, I noticed a large number of cranes in Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital of Mongolia. They were carrying and moving tons of heavy equipment from one place to another. Two were even holding up a building. It was truly amazing to watch. I learned that there is a remarkable science to creating a crane, where even the most microscopic detail must be given attention to the construction of the crane, for there can be no room for error. It must be invincible. Its construction must be precise enough to lift heavy equipment day after day and year after year. For if there is one flaw in the equipment, it will cost the lives of many. Now, if you juxtapose the construction and the power and the strength of a crane to the foundation of your spirit, you understand why you don't want any cracks in your foundation. Because at some point, those cracks could cost the lives of many. The same is understood in laboring for your soul, in constructing an invincible spirit. For example, Nicholas Roerg stated that doubt and envy are two poisonous snakes that attempt to crawl in wherever any kind of construction takes place. Doubt and envy are the destroyers of the labor of our great ones. In fact, if you spend any time on the internet and go to the agniyoga.org site, you can use their search engine and search the word doubt. The seeds of doubt. There's a lot of information and insight about how dangerous doubt is and how dangerous it is to plant seeds of doubt. And let me repeat this. Doubt and envy are the destroyers of the labor of our great ones. the great ones, the messengers of the Most High, bring us the teaching of light century after century. Soon, fabricated stories are woven, planting seeds of doubt in the minds and hearts of those dedicated to the light of the teaching. You know, I know this to be true because, I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe because I love the teaching so much that I receive books that have been authored by the enemies of the Rourkes. You cannot believe the slander, the malice, the darkness with which they write about the Rourkes. Still. And why is that? Because the Rourkes gave us a teaching through their teacher, Master M, of the greatest light, the beacon of light to follow. And so there's the threat to the darkness. And so, yeah, you're going to find all kinds of books and stories to challenge you. Do those stories plant seeds of doubt? I think of the people that I know that have tried to plant seeds of doubt in the members of White Mountain about myself. And then they begin, no, that can't be true. Well, maybe it is. Let me think about this. Oh, I bet it is. Well, maybe not. I don't know. But you see, the wavering and the distraction removes clear thinking from that person and begins to create cracks in their foundation of spirit, until some people, those cracks become as such that the foundation is weakened and they step off the spiritual path and return to a material life. Soon fabricated stories, I'm repeating myself, soon fabricated stories are woven, planting seeds of doubt in the minds and hearts of those dedicated to the light of the teaching. Stories to defame and belittle the lives and labor of the messengers and their disciples. It is then the ego and vanity, and for some simply naivety, of the followers of the messengers and their disciples, and at times even their closest disciples, who propagate these seeds of doubt. And eventually those who were the strongest believers in the messenger reduce that sacrificial one to the level of themselves. It is all very seductive. But there are always those who cannot be seduced and fooled. These are the ones who have the invincibility of spirit and will continue to labor ceaselessly for the plan of humanity. Their spirit is of God and not of earth. Nicholas Rourke wrote, "One hears endlessly about all kinds of masks behind which hides the malign darkness which dispatches its destructive agents everywhere. Yet, countless times have people heard about the horrors of doubt and envy. We are continuously warned that we cannot advance while immersing ourselves in the monster of doubt. We are also instructed in the teaching to take a stand against the assault of the dark forces. Don't give up." I've recently been talking to a family that is under serious, serious attack of the dark forces, trying to destroy the reputation of the parents, their character. I said, but you have invincibility of spirit. Hey, the dark forces cannot take that away from you. They're trying to create cracks in the foundation of the thinking and the principles and the values and the virtue of this couple, this married couple. They've been married for years and years and years. And I said, be spiritual warriors. Don't give up. Don't give in. You will win. Light always wins over darkness. Nicholas Rourke wrote, people swear almost solemn oaths that they will not fear or retreat and will not commit a betrayal. And later, after uttering the most lofty and solemn vows and mentioning all the highest and most beautiful images, people with the greatest of ease admit the most evil vipers into their heart. He also writes, it is indeed astonishing how the seemingly least motives lead wavering or flickering lights into the most terrible and irreparable consequences. It seems that such a lack of commeasurement would be impossible for human reason. N.K. believed that the most primitive mind should resist such betrayal of the greatest and finest thoughts and creation. Betrayers and belittlers and their followers have not constructed, have not labored to create a sound foundation for their spirit. It's like right now I'm being attacked by a person I've known for many, many years on their Facebook. It used to bother me because I was shocked. Who could do this and lie? Well, why not? Of course they're going to do this if they do not have a strong foundation to their spirit. This is evidenced when we see how such poison spreads to such an extent that the infected brain does not want any facts. It is blind even to the most vivid reality. We as a country are going to be facing this Wednesday, January 6th. Pay attention to the news, but as disciples, as beings of light, let us hold that light during Wednesday, the whole day of Wednesday, and you will see darkness will not prevail. Even the one whose spirit is most obscured will sometimes mechanically state, in spite of everything, light will not be impaired, weakened, or damaged, but the dark agents will still try to increase doubt and even extinguish or unsettle such a person. In such moments of dark madness, the person retreats from all logic, everything more or less sensible. All the best examples are for the obsessed, only an occasion for irritation. And here's a quote again from Nicholas Rourke. The obsessed one is ready to inflict the hardest blow upon himself. He is ready to subject his whole future to the greatest danger, fully merited, only in order to be able to utter slander, distortions, and lies. And in declaring his most evil actions, the obsessed one attempts to somehow vindicate himself, as if the evil of destruction was not already brought into action by him. This obsessed one has already heard quite clearly that the destruction created by him must be outlived without fail. The poison engendered by him has to be outlived at best with great sufferings. It would seem that it is so easy to understand about the harmfulness of evil and its nearest adherents: betrayal, envy, jealousy, and doubt. Ask any construction worker exactly what basic structural material he needs for a building. Even in these purely material, ordinary, daily examples, you will see to what an extent the builder will seek for stability and indestructibility of materials. If we see such examples as in the construction of a crane as a daily example, to what extent then must we labor for the foundation that is necessary in spiritual structures? Those of you who have been on this path long enough, and you are now old enough to have collected a number of experiences where people have attacked you with their darkness, you know how real what I am saying and sharing today is, how real it is, and how it exposes, these attacks will expose the cracks in our foundation. And if we're smart enough, we're going to quickly heal those cracks and make it whole again, make our foundation strong and beautiful and spiritually powerful, and not crumble. We labor to build a strong foundation. It is absolutely necessary as a spiritual human being because of the forces, the army of light and the army of darkness. You can build only out of the good materials that which is fully resistant to destruction. Observe the many examples when spiritual associations broke up because of such petty things and trifles. You must labor to construct an invincibility of spirit with only the most pure and good material. We have been given many tools with which to construct a good spiritual foundation. Simple tools like the virtues, acting through humility, and the practice of harmlessness. Then, meditation. It is through meditation that many obstacles from within your nature will come to the foreground, ready for reconstruction if you allow it. Self-observation is another tool which will reveal yourself to yourself, your weaknesses, wrong speech, selfish motives, harmful behaviors, and so forth, which once recognized can be eliminated. And in so doing will keep you from being stuck with furthering karma. Karma which becomes increasingly difficult to eradicate. It's very interesting to think about karma and to live a long enough life to see how karma plays out and how karma is so difficult. Negative karma, of course, and why we want not to create negative karma in our life. When we engage in an action that results in negative karma, it not only creates a larger crack in our foundation, it takes a longer time to recover and to pay that debt. It's very interesting. It's almost like credit card debt. You know, you charge something and you end up, let's say that an item costs $10 and you put it on your credit card, a credit card that has high interest. And that $10 purchase now becomes a $30 purchase. And that's not an exaggeration. If you charge, let's say, $100 on your credit card, your high interest credit card, that $100 purchase ends up costing you $200. This is what karma does, negative karma. It takes us longer to pay off that debt if that debt begins to accumulate and draw repeated behavior to it. And that puts us back on the wheel of rebirth, coming back to the planet again, paying off personal karma before we can engage in world service. It's very interesting. As you strive, labor to eliminate these weaknesses from your personality nature, it is then that you no longer fall prey to obsession and possession. You will have constructed your spiritual foundation out of only good material, fully resistant to destruction. Only through an enlightened heart and the attained stage of invincibility of spirit is the disciple steadfast in their cooperation with hierarchy and the plan. There's no wavering. Nicholas Rourke writes, but if people repeat so many times to each other about the shamefulness of bowing to darkness, will they also freely admit to the abdominal worms they have allowed into their own hearts? In the book Talks on Agni by Torquem Serderian, he writes, in order to be a great laborer for the plan of the hierarchy, you need 7 virtues. And I'll share those virtues in the closing, which is now. So these 7 virtues. The first is one-pointed persistence. He says you set out to do something, and no matter what happens, you finish it. You persist against all obstacles and difficulties, and you accomplish what you intend to do. Patience is the second virtue. In its esoteric meaning, it is more than waiting for the proper conditions in which to labor. The silent observer and inspirer within you is patience. The silent observer and inspirer within you is patience. Alertness is the third virtue. You are aware of what is going on in the world physically, emotionally, and mentally. You see social and global aspects and the signs of the time because you know that your labor will suffer if you do not consider the conditions of the world. The next virtue, the fourth, is a sense of direction. Is sensitivity to the plan and to coordinate your goal and direction with the plan. That is a sense of direction. To coordinate your goal and direction with the plan. The fifth virtue is inclusiveness, the ability to synthesize many viewpoints. It is to take in those elements of advice, scientific investigation, and knowledge which contribute to the answer of a problem. All wisdom is accepted regardless of the source. The sixth virtue is compassion. Compassion is a sign of one who labors as a world server. And number 7, courage and daring. You must have courage and daring in order to complete your spiritual building. So, in conclusion, let me share the words of the Master. And this is from Fiery World, Volume 3, paragraph 71. Among the fiery servants of humanity should be particularly noted those who take upon themselves sacrificial labor. The spirit of these servants of humanity is like a fiery torch, for in its potentiality this spirit contains all the qualities which can uplift mankind. Only a powerful consciousness can take upon itself sacrificial labor. Each task of a servant of humanity reflects the quality of his spirit. Again, you can find that in Fiery World, Volume 3, verse 71. So I was thinking whether I should say anything, and I decided I'm going to, over the next few weeks, every Sunday, mention that the White Mountain Education Association is going to be presenting a conference in March. We have a conference page that's totally dedicated to the conference, and we have videos on there, we have teaching in there, there'll be more information added to the conference, of which you can attend and learn more and experience and expand your understanding of Agni Yoga and the spiritual path during this conference. It's a virtual conference. In part, some of it will be handled locally. It's a donation-only conference. Don't miss it. Register for this conference. Set aside some time during the week of that conference. You don't have to attend 100 hours. Maybe 1 hour is all the time you have to attend, but it will be a golden experience to hear what others want to share with you about their experience with hierarchy. What is hierarchy? What does Agni Yoga have to say about hierarchy? There'll be music, there'll be panelists. It'll be a wonderful conference. So I'm going to be talking about this every Sunday. Normally we are so quiet about our conference, we do next to nothing about advertising it. But it's time. It's time to bring our conferences, our many, many, many years of conferences into the light of the public, the spiritual community. So I invite you to go to White Mountain's website. Very easy to find. Just put our name in the search engine and you'll find us. And if not, contact us through our website and we'll answer your questions. So that's today, Agni Yoga series. This is the first Sunday of the whole year of 2021. So I'm happy to wish you a blessed new year, 2021.